You want me to look right here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right.
Everybody good? Guys ready? We're holding up here. I'm good. I'm good. All right, she's moving. Hold on.
Do y'all want me to just start, or you want to kick it off with something?
You
can start.
Yeah. Okay.
We got X questions after.
All right. Tell me when.
Everybody good? Good. Go ahead.
All right, so my office today announced that we booked an individual last night and processed him on 10 counts of principal to escape from a penal institution, and we've also charged him with 1 count of malfeasance in office. That individual was a maintenance worker at the facility, and we believe him to have been involved in turning the water off in connection with this event. This investigation is still an ongoing investigation, and so there could be more arrests that will follow. Those charges could also be upgraded or changed or added to. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Has, Ms. Attorney General, has the individual who left to go get food, that guard, been suspended?
The personnel side of things you'd have to ask the sheriff about. So that's an administrative question. I mean, we haven't filed charges against anybody else yet that's on the staff.
Okay. The sheriff's office had directed us to ask you that. They said that
Well, if they suspended the person as an administrative matter, then the sheriff's office shall to be able to confirm that.
Two questions. Number one, is Mr. William cooperating with the investigation? In other words, talking about sort of things that happened prior to the escape. And number two, what do you buy of his saying that he had to do this because one of the escapees threatened to shank him?
Oh, look, I think that he made some bad decisions. I mean, I don't think that he had to do any of the things that he did. And, you know, if he was under threat, then he certainly should have brought that to someone else's attention. But, you know, the facts that I'm aware of indicate that there were multiple opportunities to do that, to bring it to the attention of authorities. If he wants to bring that up in his defense, then that's a matter for his defense attorneys.
Is he cooperating?
I'm not going to speak to the conversations that we've had with the individual.
Did Mr. Williams have charges before this with any previous criminal records?
Not that I'm aware of.
You used the term maliciously assisted in the affidavit, and I know he described the reason why he did this as him being threatened to have been shanked. I know that if I was put in a position, I would be, you know, really disturbed and not knowing what to do. You know, why would you use the word maliciously?
Look, I think it's legal terms for the report. Maliciously assisted in an escape means you intended to assist 10 individuals to escape from a penal institution, or from a jail or, you know, a prison. Since we've had these conversations about jails, prisons, and different facilities. But, you know, he intended to assist these individuals to leave that facility. That's why we use those terms.
Attorney General Mills Hayes with News Nation. Just wondering, in the arrest affidavit, it said that he was untruthful. Did he originally lie to investigators?
As I appreciated, he denied his involvement in the outset, but he's now, you know, we've gotten more information, and that's the basis for the arrest.
Can you share some of the positions of other people who are under investigation at OPSO, what their jobs might have been, their roles?
I really can't speak to the details of that. I can tell you that that we have and still are conducting a very thorough investigation of the staff. My investigation won't just stop with the acute event. We will also look at broader conditions at the facility. And I'm also looking at contributing factors that may not be in the control of the sheriff at that facility, like the number of people that she has housed there and how long they're staying there and what they're there for and whether there's a backlog in the court system that could address some of this problem. So at the acute event, what the contributing individuals were, what their participation was, everything that happened before these 10 people climbed over that wall. But that will also back out into other things that might be contributing to conditions at the prison. I know that the sheriff has indicated that she has concerns about locks on doors, and she's been asking to replace those. the governor is sending in an audit team so that he can look at those facility questions and make sure that we can address those problems. Our intent is to make sure that this never happens again. And so, we're going to look at all the things that we need to do to change those conditions, and at the same time hold everyone accountable that may have been involved before, during, and after.
Attorney General, can you tell me?
They're still in New Orleans at this time? Where are their whereabouts?
The state police have been leading the command, and the U.S. Marshals, I think, are involved in that. My office has been involved with providing some resources in that pursuit. So I really couldn't tell you. I think they've had the capacity to leave the city. Just the time involved with them being out gives them the capacity to leave. Now, the reality of that is they have to get resources to be able to leave, and we have cautioned everyone, I think, has been clear that if you are assisting these individuals or haven't assisted these individuals, you should stop. If you are assisting them, then we're going to arrest you and we're going to prosecute you for assisting in the escape. So, that's not a good thing to do for anybody, is to continue to help them. And I think the more help they get, the more likely it is that they're able to move further away.
Ma'am, I remember the governor asking.
Hang on.
I remember the governor saying just a couple days ago that this is probably the largest prison break in the state's history. When was the last time that there was a prison break this big, and how long did it take to catch everyone?
My research indicates that and you can check this. I just kind of ran a quick search on it. I can't find a larger one in the entire country, not just in the state. But 3 people is the max that I was able to confirm of the last one, and I couldn't tell you which one it was, but the maximum number was 3. So I have emphasized to everybody involved, including the sheriff and everybody else, that this is a big deal. It is a big deal, and I don't think anybody thinks that it's not. There's still 6 people that are out. We need to find them. There are a lot of people, including the district attorney, who are rightfully very uncomfortable and worried about his staff and his own safety and his family. There are witnesses and victims, and all of those people are very rightfully very unnerved by all of this. And so time is of the essence, and we are doing everything within our power. All the boots are on the ground to try and recover these individuals, and all the resources that are at our disposal, including working with the FBI to recover them.
And Attorney General, can you specifically, excuse me, can you please?
He had a question first.
The sheriff has
And
said,
he's asked you, I haven't gotten one.
Okay.
the Orleans Justice Center was not built to be a maximum security prison. With that in mind, why were so many state inmates still housed at the jail post-conviction?
So there weren't a lot of state inmates there. As my understanding is the total number of DOC classified inmates was right around 60. This is a facility that is approved to house 1,400 people, and it was about at that capacity. So 60 is not a lot of DOC inmates. The reason for them being there, I can't speak to. The Department of Corrections can, but it may be that they were being held there pre-trial for other charges, parole violations, things like that. Those are some of the reasons why you might have somebody in a local jail that's at capacity like that. And so, they have been removed. They were removed over the weekend. 60 people is not going to reduce the number enough. I would like to see it reduced to significantly higher number, and I'm looking at some of the potential ways to do that.
Attorney General, can you please speak to what kind of ideal process would take place in the case of Mr. Williams as far as him having reported that he was allegedly threatened in this way by Mr. Massey? What would you have liked to see happen?
I can't speak to what he could have, would have, should have done. I really can't. I mean, he made decisions. That's going to play itself out in the prosecution of his case. I'm sure that he will engage in that discussion, and I don't really know exactly when he says he was threatened, how long that went on, what choices he might have made every single day that he didn't make the choice to report it. I mean, I just don't have answers for those questions. That'll play out in his actual defense and his prosecution.
When is the jail audit supposed to begin? Do you know at this time?
My understanding is that the governor was sending in an audit team to audit the facility and staffing issues and those kinds of questions, and also to look at how that complies, or those things were compliant with the basic jail guidelines. as soon as this morning. So they may already be in that facility and having that conversation. That is certainly going to be relevant to my investigation as well, but I think they are the right people to do this. He's bringing in facility corrections professionals who understand what it takes to run a jail. Staffing issues are an issue for everybody. The State Department of Corrections struggles with that. Local other sheriffs do struggle with that. But part of the answer is you've got to bring the people down to meet your staffing levels and make sure that you are able to properly manage that facility. We need to look at what the level of threat those people have that are in that facility. And so I'll be looking at all of those things. One of the issues that I've already looked at and that I'm continuing to look at, conversation that needs to continue, is with the court system. We have one judge who I know the Crime Commission issued a report on a couple of weeks ago, had a docket that had over 700 cases dating back to 2016. My understanding, and I'm still trying to verify this number at the prison, is that over 400 individuals on that docket may be in custody at the prison. That's almost a third to a fourth of the total census at the prison in that one judge's docket. So, I'm going to be appealing to the Supreme Court to help manage this issue as well. I think this requires everybody who has the ability to contribute to solving this problem to contribute what they can. And so I certainly will be looking at what all the contributing factors are. We will be focusing in my criminal investigation on what criminal involvement there is. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is make sure that this can't happen again. And that means that anybody who can contribute to solving that problem needs to be part of that.
And speaking of that, ma'am, right now as we speak, there's a very dramatic city council meeting that's going on. The city is, kind of at odds with each other over just a really egregious lack of what the sheriff says, a lack of funding over years and years and years that has led this brand new, 10-year-old jail to be decrepit. Do you feel like the state and city partnership here has egg on its face at this point with how this was all managed over the years?
Look, I wouldn't agree with the description that this is a decrepit facility. It's not. And there are some issues with it, and there are some issues that I think the sheriff has raised. There is a lot of money that's used to fund this prison. I would like to take a look at the funding and compare it to other prisons that we're running, local jails that we're running around the state, look at what their population is, how much it costs to run that jail. You can compare their numbers. Now, it's not apples to apples when you've got a rural facility compared to an urban facility. You've got to look at who they are, what they're being held for, what the nature of the crimes are that they've been accused of, to understand their level of threat. This facility was built, as I appreciate it, and with an understanding that it was going to have some high threat individuals in it. So I don't think that it's fair to say that this is simply a minimum security prison. It's got to have features in it that will handle people who need higher security measures. How they were doing that inside the prison, I can't answer that yet. I did watch parts of that council hearing. I think that, I'm someone who believes that fiscal transparency is a given. This is taxpayer money. It is a lot of money, and I think that, we ought to be able to see exactly how that money is being spent. And I promise you that with all of the attention that is now being given to this, everyone's going to be looking at that. It's not just going to be a city council sheriff discussion that happens month to month to month. Everybody's looking at it, and the governor's audit team is going to have, I think, a significant thing to say about the running of the facility, the staffing of the facility, and the funding of the facility. I'm not going to, answer questions about that. I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer that question. I think that, I'm focused on my job right now, which is conducting an investigation inside the prison. And I will say that the sheriff has been cooperative from the beginning. I came in on Friday afternoon with my people. I have been very clear that I believe this investigation should be independent of the sheriff's department. But, there are some people there that are being very, very helpful. We need to understand what they do, why they do it, how they operate. I appreciate that cooperation, and so, I want to continue to facilitate a productive relationship with the sheriff. I know that she is addressing, the issues as best she can right now, and what that means for her in the future is not my concern right now.
Two more quick ones, y'all. Just two more.
Look, we're all the captain of our own ships, and I think she took responsibility at the hearing today and said, I take responsibility for what happened. That's appropriate. If it was me, I think you have to do that. You are the captain of your own ship.
Have you been in contact with the families of the six inmates, the victims? Has your office been in contact with any of them?
The inmates who escaped?
No, ma'am. The victims of those inmates that are still on the run.
No, I know that the Orleans Parish Police Department and the District Attorney's Office has been engaging quite a bit with victims related to the crimes of which these people are accused. I do intend to have my office engage on that as well. I want to make sure that those families feel like they're being adequately taken care of, that there are resources that are being provided to them. I will also have some outreach to some of the public officials. I'm going to meet with District Attorney Jason Williams this afternoon after this, and we're going to have a discussion about some things that I think are within his and my control in terms of case management and things like that on some of these cases. So, I think everybody we need to be making sure that everybody who feels threatened by this directly because they have some direct involvement with the escapees is that their concerns are being addressed.
Gabby and Katie last one.
I know that the four inmates who've since been captured are in state facilities now. At least 3 of them are at Angola itself. Were you part of that decision? And overall, do you think that that's the most secure place that they can be?
I do think it's the most secure place that they can be. I think it's the appropriate place for them to be. I didn't make the decision about where they would be, but I certainly had an opinion that they shouldn't be back in Orleans Parish Prison, and that given their propensity to escape, that they should be held in the most secure place possible, and that's Angola.
Katie, last one.
Okay. Given you talked about how witnesses are concerned, families of victims are concerned. Some families have described themselves as going into hiding. Are you fearful for your safety as a result of these people being back on the street?
I'm not fearful for my safety. I am concerned about the safety of all of these individuals who have a direct relationship with these individuals' cases. I think that is a fair concern of theirs. I think all of the ADAs and the District Attorney's Office is also, there might be court officials and judges who also are on edge. That is obviously a fair concern for them. And so, I do want to make sure that all of those people feel like they have the resources that they need and that they are protected. As long as these individuals are out, they will be pretty edgy, and legitimately so. So, I'm going to do everything that I can to address those concerns. I know the governor's committed to that as well. I haven't seen anybody, quite frankly, who isn't. So, but I also am continuing to encourage all the public officials, the city council, the court system, the federal court system, the sheriff, the district attorney, we all need to be able to pull together to figure out what role we can play to address this problem and have a short-term plan, an intermediate-term plan, and a long-term plan to deal with this facility. It's not the first time that we've had issues. We all know that there are some known issues with this particular facility. So, it's got everybody's attention. We need to address the problem.
And finally, one thing, I really want to ask, the sheriff said today in the city council meeting that they're admitting that there were not proper patrols that were made that night to go and check on folks inside the prison. Given that information, other information you've been gathering in your investigation, you talked about there's a potential for more charges to be forthcoming. Can you elaborate what other charges might come? Who else might be charged?
I can't speak to that. It's a continuing investigation. We will pursue every avenue, and we will determine whether the conduct is chargeable as a criminal charge or it's, something that falls below the level of criminal malfeasance or direct involvement with the escape. So that is part of why I will eventually issue a comprehensive report, and I will bring, everything basically that I've been able to collect and can address the problems that I've identified. If we find individuals whose conduct rises to the level of what I would consider to be chargeable malfeasance, then we will charge that.
All right, y'all. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Please don't get WIES in the background if y'all can. If y'all are shooting her on the way out.
Okay. It's strange for me to have to keep looking straight when y'all are asking me questions.
You did good.